All right, well, nearly 400 seniors at Morehouse College in Atlanta got an unexpected graduation gift this weekend. It came from their commencement speaker, billionaire Robert F. Smith.
On behalf of the 8 generations of my family who have been in this country, we're going to put a little fuel in your bus. Now, I've got the alumni over there, and this is the challenge to you alumni. This is my class, 2019. And my family is making a grant to eliminate their student loans.
A reaction. Now, exactly how much that gift is worth is still being calculated, but it's estimated to be about $40 million for the almost 400 students. Now, paying for higher education can leave students owing tens of thousands of dollars, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in the U.S. Students here in Canada also face financial challenges. A 2018 Canadian University Consortium survey of 15,000 graduating students found about half were in debt. Take a look at this. Of those, the average amount owed was almost $28,000. Monthly payments at the current interest rates would be about $335, and borrowers take between 9 and 15 years on average to pay off their Canada student loans. Now, having to make student loan payments can be a challenge for new graduates trying to establish their careers, and that's why Robert Smith's gift to the Morehouse grads has the potential to be life-changing. Tonight, we're asking our panel, is there another way to ease that burden of paying for post-secondary education? Should governments make college and university more affordable? Joining us from Toronto is Tasha Karidan. Thank you for joining us. She is the founder and CEO of Ellipsum Communications. And we have freelance author and columnist Michael Quarren. And from Vancouver, the host of Charles Adler Tonight, Charles Adler. Welcome to you all.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Arthi.
All right, so first I'll start with you maybe, Tasha. What's your take on what Robert Smith did for the 2019 Morehouse graduating class?
Well, it was an amazing act of generosity. I mean, there's nothing, you cannot say a single bad thing about it. It was wonderful for him to do. It was a statement, I think, also, as he said, for him, for his experience, his family's experience, paying it forward in a challenge he launched to the next generation as well. I think it was, I think it was a great thing to do. The United States, as you pointed out, has much higher tuition than here, and some of those students were in debt, $200,000, which is an astronomical amount of money. I don't think that's necessarily the case for as many graduates potentially in Canada, but I say kudos to him. It was a great thing to do.
And I wanted to ask you, Michael, in terms of that burden that is left on students, of course, this was an incredibly generous act that we saw done by this CEO, but is it something that does need to be addressed in a more broad sense by governments? As one of the questions that we have, what can they do? One person being so generous is wonderful, but this is a wider problem than just 400 students.
Well, it is. May I just say that I actually graduated last week from university.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I did. I years ago in Britain, golly, back in the late 70s, I went to a couple, but this was here. And we've put my wife and 3 children through university in various countries. So I do understand a bit about this. Look, what he did was glorious, noble, altruistic, and wonderful. And nothing must escape from that. It was a wonderful gesture, but it was only a gesture and not a solution. People might be surprised that tuition is free, not just in Norway and Sweden and Finland and Slovenia, but in France, in Germany, in Brazil, in Mexico, in China. In China, it's $3,000 a year. That's the ceiling. That's all people pay. But in this country, I'm not going to speak for anywhere else. I've seen it on a personal level, and when I've read studies about this, you cannot get a job that you really want unless you have a degree. So it's not a case of, I don't know what to do, maybe I'll go to university. You have to get that degree to get a job. You're being told if you want that job, you have to accumulate debt unless you come from a wealthy family, and that debt is often $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. That will go on for many years, as you said in the preamble to this. Is that fair? What it means is if you come from a moneyed family, that won't be an issue, and the cycle of wealth continues. And the debt is not being paid to some lovely person just giving it away. It's all about those who invest and those who control finance already. So the banks and so on are making a lot from all of this. Interest is charged. It gets higher and higher. No, we're meant to be investing in our future from a selfish point of view. We're meant to be an equitable society from a public point of view. So I think we should aspire, I'm not dreaming here, it'll take time, but we should aspire to a publicly funded tuition system where people pay, if a little bit, it's reduced, and if at all possible, they don't pay at all.
So, Charles, what do you think? Is that the broader solution here? Should we have publicly funded post-secondary education, as we heard from Michael, maybe suggested something that is happening in Europe? Of course, taxpayers would have to shell out more to sort of create that even playing field.
You know, we hear expressions like 60 is a new 40 or 50 is new 40, well, whatever it is. But, you know, the point is undergrad education, as Michael pointed out a few moments ago, he just says it differently because he's a different guy. But, you know, an undergrad education is today's high school. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is. And when we were going to high school, it was, you know, public school for the most part. And for those of us who, you know, like Michael and I, we grew up on the so-called wrong side of the tracks. So there was compulsory high school. I guess some people may have thought that was socialism or communism, but that's just crazy. It was necessary. It was a great investment for society, for the public. And it would be just as great as an investment today where everyone needs college because that's today's high school. It would be just as great an investment for the public to make sure that kids aren't in debt for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, whatever it is. It just opens up their choices to get into the workforce and to do what they actually want to do, not because they've got to pay back debt, but because it's what's up here and over here. And that's what I want kids to have, maximum opportunity. And like Michael says, it's not exactly radical. It's not just those blessed progressive Scandinavians. It's something that's going on all over the world. All kinds of people, right wing, left wing, have figured this one out. But Canada, for some reason, I guess we're always feeling closer to the Americans. Yes. And we go, well, the Americans, you know, they're in debt $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. Our kids are only in debt usually somewhere between 25 and 30. So I guess we're doing okay. We're not. We should be going by the world standards, not by the U.S. standard.
No, yes, Tasha, I wanted to ask you.
Outlier on this here. I think that let's talk about some other numbers, because it is true that, yes, the average debt in Canada was mentioned. About half of the students are in debt, an average of $28,000. Other numbers I've seen, the average is 23, and a third of students graduate with no debt at all. The number that really surprised me, though, when I looked at this was that 1 in 6 they drop out after their first year, and it's not about money. The reason they drop out is they actually cannot handle university for a variety of academic or sometimes social reasons. They feel that the high school, the free high school we have, hasn't prepared them for university in some cases. No, but my point is this. We are encouraging everyone to go to university. It seems this universal university is the idea. There are jobs you can get without a university degree, and some people may actually want those jobs but may feel, oh, if I don't go to university, I'm some kind of failure. It's not true. I think what I would prefer would be to see the state say, look, if you get through your first year and you succeed in your first year and you do well, then we'll reward you with some aid, because otherwise what you're saying is you're encouraging people to go to school who may not be able to actually succeed in school, and that's worse for them. So why not say, you know, if there's going to be assistance, base it on merit, base it on achievement, and say if you manage to get through that year, then we'll look at some form of grant or other. But I don't feel that, you know, today's students will always complain that they are in a financial crisis. When I was in school, we paid a lot less, and people were complaining then. So, you know, at the same time that I have a bit of sympathy for students, I also say, look, I worked my way through school. A lot of people did. It's not the end of the world. You can try to do that too.
And you know, the thing is that might work for one demographic of students, but without a question, there is another social demographic of students where it is not just simply merit-based. They are dealing with challenges outside of school, within the home, that have nothing really to do with whether or not they are prepared for the academic challenges that are presented in post-secondary education, but the social challenges they may have in a household where they don't maybe get support, or where they have to contribute to helping their parents pay for the mortgage or the rent, or help their siblings. So I think it perhaps may not be as black and white there. And maybe to illustrate that point, we do also have a clip here of one of the students of the graduating class from Morehouse College talking about what this meant to him. Let's take a listen quickly.
You know, I've gotten scholarships and grants here and there, but it's just kept on piling up. 47, maybe next year when I got the scholarship, I got like 35,000, but it kept on adding up.
Yeah.
And you know, loans add up with interest and, you know, sub and unsubsidized. So when I heard the message, it just rang back in my head, that first feeling I had when I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's either an investment in my future or just no investment at all. So to hear that it will be taken care of, it's just like, now I can pay it literally forward.
So you're seeing there, you know, a situation where it is someone who really isn't trying their best to try and get those scholarships and pay for the tuition and the student loans, but is really being sort of held back by the other challenges.
If I may, there's a very important point has to be made here, and it's not that I have special information here, but I have just spent 3 years at university. Universities in this country, and this is not confined to Canada, are still overwhelmingly white and middle class. Now, I'm not trying to be a social engineer here, but if we want to construct a society that does more reflect the real world, and that's always desirable, if we do want more equality, not equality of achievement, we can't control that, but of opportunity, we have to give opportunities to people. I was the first in my family to go to university. My grandparents were immigrants from Eastern Europe, but since then, my children have gone to university, I'm sure their children will as well. But you have to break the cycle of indifference or poverty or lack of information. And look, I don't mind if we talk about maybe after the first year. I think what Tasha said could be plausible. Maybe not just a blanket amount of money given, you have to show effort, but there's already a qualifying point. You don't just walk into university. Yes, some are harder to get into than others, but you have to show you've worked hard at high school. There was a time, as Charles alluded to, when high school wasn't free. If you go back and look at records of 100 years ago, the idea that the state would pay for kids to go to school until they're 16 or 18, how could we do such a thing? Well, now we do, and we wouldn't even comprehend any alternative.
Can I say also, I think, though, that you also have to put some responsibility on people to make choices. And I'll put some out there. For example, if you've got a university in your town, or a university that you have, maybe it'll take you an hour to commute. That was my experience.
Yep.
My parents said point blank, you're not going to another school. We're not going to pay for you to go to another school somewhere else, because there is one here an hour away and you can get to it. I had free room and board. I paid my tuition myself. Granted, it was lower, but I could, I would have loved to have lived closer to the university, like some of my friends had the choice. I didn't have that choice. And I think that that's something else that a lot of students today, it's assumed university means going away somewhere, that you have to get to whatever school. But my point is this, is that there are ways to try and make choices that might be maybe not the perfect choice, but could save you money. And I think that's the first thing people should look at, as opposed to saying the state should just pay for me to go wherever I want.
You're being very hard on students, Dash. Really, again, having spent 3 years, just graduated, they're nothing like as bad or needy as those of us who are older.
I don't think they're bad or needy, Michael.
Well,
I just think that a little
across.
tough love is not a bad thing either. And working also, if you have to work, I know people who went to school, went to university when they were older, when they had a job. And yes, maybe that's not the perfect thing to do. But at the same time, the assumption that we're all entitled to a university education, I disagree with that.
And you know what? This is such a complex topic, and we could dissect every angle to it, but we have no more time to do that. So thank you so much for joining us for this important discussion. Tasha Carradine, Michael Corrin, and Charles Adler, thank you all for this interesting discussion.
Thank you, Arthie.
Thank you.